Zach. Jesus.
Catherine's on the way.
She's on the way.
She is teleporting.
I like the yellow hills.
He's not looking at her heels.
Zach in yellow heels. That's what we need to say. And look who it is. It's Kath. Hello. All right, so I'll put away to say hello in Tennessee. Howdy. Is that what you're saying? I feel like nobody said howdy. They did what not once. Did anybody say howdy to you? Hi, y'all. Hey, y'all. I'm fixing it.
How many 2 words have you combined into one? Like I watched Jeff Foxworthy, Blue Collar Comedy Tour. It's one of my favorites. And words like mayonnaise. Mayonnaise, a lot of people in here. You know what I mean? You got any good ones? Fixin'.
European on my shoes.
Wow.
European on my shoes.
I'm not sure how you use that.
I will never say that when I'm in Europe. European. Yes, I was.
Which is a good one. You didn't bring the car with you, did you?
Oh yeah, which you did. That was Blue Collar Comedy Tour.
All right, so it's I guess it's Morphin time. We got Zorda here. We got I call him Papa Z. Papa Z. Papa Z's in the house.
I'm gonna open my own restaurant.
I'm gonna open my own restaurant called Papa Z's.
Alpha's gonna be serving food.
It's gonna have the Ranger Mafia to back him up.
All right, so we're gonna actually come down and we're gonna let you guys ask your questions, and we're just gonna roll with it because like we said, it's early, even though it's late in the day, and it's already been a long one.
All right. So can I get a line? I guess right here in the middle. All right, what's your question?
So, a few years back, Audie Shankar did Power Dot Rangers, which was a very dark and gritty take on the Power Rangers. Do you feel like there's a space for that sort of take on the Power Rangers, or as former Rangers, do you feel like that kind of infringes on the vibe or the feel of what Power Rangers is? Because I was, 7 years old, and you guys were my before school and Saturday mornings. Do you feel like that kind of puts a damper on what Power Rangers is, or is there room for a darker, grittier take on the mythology of Power Rangers?
I think because the show is still on as a kids show, I think there's a responsibility there that we have to keep it wholesome and sweet. But I actually really did like it, and I think for you older fans, it was for the older fans, I think it was fun to do something different and dark and grittier. But because it's still on TV, I feel like there's still a responsibility for it to be wholesome.
Like Catherine, I liked the production value of it. I thought it was done really, really well. They obviously put a lot of money in. Joseph Kahn is amazing behind the camera as far as directing. On the other hand, I think that Shattered Grid, the comic series that Boom did, had a darker aspect to the storytelling, but also kept the colorful characters and stuff from the show. And I think that did a better job of communicating
Not too dark, just
a more mature,
because the
older audience story, but still maintaining the characters. And I thought they did a better job.
I think, you look at where Batman started. Pow, bang, boom, zap. I mean, it was pretty campy and pretty cheesy. But over time, and then look at The Dark Knight, and look at what we have today. So I feel like as the audience grows, kind of like Kat was saying, the expectations change, maturity level, you can handle different things. You have a different view on the world today than you did at 5. So, like Kat was saying, I like the darker version. I think there's a place for it. But I would hate for my little one to accidentally see that as their first exposure to Power Rangers.
Right.
So, you know, that's what, you know, I'm going to put the responsibility where it belongs, and that's you guys.
Yeah, the parents.
It's up to you who sees
My
it.
kid's first exposure to Power Rangers was the original, because that's what I grew up with. Like, this whatever Samurai Super Squad is going on, that's not what it's at, bro. Let's start from the jump.
Suicide Squad.
I think one of the things that I love most about being a Power Ranger, being affiliated with the show, is the fact that, like, a lot of the fans that come up to me, they talk about how they've been inspired to be a better person, to be a hero in the world, and I think that is amazing. It's like putting forth something in the world that we need. It's food for the soul, for the spirit of the earth. You know, it's like positivity and goodness prevailing, that kind of thing. So I think as far as the young kids are concerned, that they need that. So I would definitely say that I enjoyed it as well, but it needs to be called something different. It couldn't be called Power Rangers. It should be called,
Right. Like,
you know, something different. Give it its own thing. You know, it could be us involved. There you go. I like that song. Give it something different, but so that it fits in the adult realm and not, it doesn't infringe on what we are, or what the Power Rangers are.
Thank you.
Hello again.
Hey, what's up, man?
What's up? I got up, came here to see you guys again.
Hey, glad to see you here.
Yeah.
Who you gonna call?
Huh?
Who you gonna call?
Oh. It made me think about yesterday with the guy and about what time it is, and somehow that.
he was looking at your shirt.
I'm looking at this shirt. Who are you? I'm Batman. I'm sorry, I'm going through everything.
Ghostbusters.
Sorry, Batman on the hat, Ghostbusters on the shirt. What's your question?
Hey, Ernie was a Ghostbuster and was in a Batman movie, so, you know. Anyway. This is specifically for you, Walter, but I'm interested in seeing about any other question. I'm also interested if anything might be the same for you, for the rest of you. I've read somewhere that you originally were cast as Billy. Is any truth to that?
It's funny that you should ask that because that is absolutely not true. Yeah, no, I've never been cast as Billy. I was always cast as Zachary Taylor. What it was David Yost auditioned to be Victor at the time, who became Jason. And so he auditioned to become the Red Ranger, and he got, as we were going through the auditions, they kind of pushed him out and said, okay, well, you're done. And he said, well, look, let me audition to play part of Billy. And they were like, we really don't see you as that character because he was dressed, looking cool, and had his hair slicked back and trying to be, you know, that athlete jock, whatever. And then what he did is he borrowed somebody's shirt, and he put on his glasses and messed up his hair and came back and was like Billy with the glasses. And they allowed him to audition eventually, and then he became Billy. So he killed it. And so that's his story. Maybe he got confused. I was always Zach.
I was just curious if any of you had ever been cast in any other characters before then.
I was also Tom and Jason. One training, one time.
That's why she had a package. But we don't talk about that. Could you imagine, like Kat and I were just talking, my character's name was originally Victor. And if I'd given him a Russian accent, how many of you seen Armageddon? Could have been like Russian space station. It is morphing time, you know? This could have been great. Look at my Tyrannosaurus. You know, I would have had a blast with that.
Thank you so much.
This is for Kat. You were introduced as like a villain who turned into a monstrous cat. How did you feel about that? I mean, becoming a Pink Ranger.
I loved being able to be evil. That was fun. Because I feel like once we were good, all we did was just, you know, nod at each other and say, morphin time, it's now, right, okay. Everything was very, like, PC. So it was fun to play around and be evil. I liked that part. And I liked the storyline. I thought it was a nice way to let Kimberly leave and honor her and her character. So I enjoyed it. I thought the monster was kind of weird though, because it had lingerie on. And it looked more like a fox than a cat. That's what I heard actually. Someone told me that yesterday. You probably told me that. Yeah. So.
What does the fox say?
Meow or something. Meow, 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 meow.
My question is for Jason.
Yes, sir.
About you being the Red Ranger, was it hard for you to be like the leader and stuff?
Was it hard being what?
The leader.
It just came naturally. I think I was raised around some incredible leaders in my life. My dad was a Mustanger, retired as a major in the Marine Corps. He was incredibly well respected. My mom was one of the first female cops in the state of New Mexico, I think the first in Roswell ever, in the 70s. And her own police partners, some of them tried to have her killed because she didn't belong in the force as a woman. So I grew up around some very strong characters with incredible leadership qualities. And at 17, when I got cast, I had no concept. I knew how to run a martial arts class. I knew how to be team captain in football because I was in high school. Aside from that, I had zero leadership experience. So I drew from my parents and did my best to model my character after my dad and my mom, they were the very walk softly but carry a big stick. Don't brag, don't be loud. So Jason was always soft-spoken until it was time for battle. And that's when, its morphin' time became what it was. It was a great question. It didn't come easy. I had to work and look up to people that were important to me to find those things.
Thank you so much.
I actually have two. Is that okay?
No, just one.
Okay. Well, one specifically is for you, Austin. Like.
I am ready for you.
So, when y'all first started out, there was no Tommy. It was you. You were the leader. And then Tommy came in, and then you were kind of like you guys were like co-leaders. So how did that feel? Like you were the leader, and then here comes this new guy. Like.
It was never a problem for me. I am the leader, and he wanted to be. And that's how it is. The reason he got promoted to White Ranger is because they knew the three of us were leaving the show, period. But he doesn't tell the world that. He tells you guys, you made him the leader. Fact is, we left the show, so you see him get promoted to White Ranger, and 3 episodes later, I was gone.
Yeah, I noticed that. It was like right
So
after that.
that's how he got promoted. Now you know.
My second question is for like all y'all. Like the movie that came out, the remake. Like, how did you all feel about that? Because I was 8 years old when the first one came out, and I know that you guys had already left by then, and you hadn't come in. But like, my mom knew every single word from it. Like, she even tried to hide the tape at times because we would just play it over and over and over again. She was so tired of it. And to my mind, that can't be, like, the remake was okay. I went in the theaters, I saw it, like, I didn't know if I was going to like it. I mean, it's okay, but, like, to me, the first one can't be beat. So, like, how do you guys feel about new people taking your characters on, and they had the potential to make it or break it? I feel like you, like, as Jason, even though they did a good job in the movie, there's no replacing you. You are always going to be Jason. You are always going to be Zach. You're always going to be Catherine. Like, there's no... They did a good job, but I feel like... I hope that you guys are not disrespected, that they didn't do something maybe that you would have wanted, or not do something that you would have wanted? Like, did you guys like it?
I have the ultimate.
If somebody called me up today and said, we want you to do an original Batman remake as Batman, I would have oh hell no. Because I'm walking into an iconic role. And redoing that role in my own way is a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure. So the actors that stepped up and had the courage to give their own spin to characters that span 25 years, man, I've got nothing but respect for them. And I'm proud of them. R.J. Silent, absolute favorite character in the movie. I loved R.J. Favorite line? Dude, I'm the Black Ranger. No, you're not. No, dude, I'm the Black Ranger. No, you're not. There were things I loved about it. There were things I would have done different. Rita was hot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if that had been my Rita, I might have been the evil Red Ranger.
I think as well in the movie, it was written completely different from the original. One of the main differences in this current movie is with the idea that Zordon recruited teenagers with attitude. So when they recruited us as teenagers with attitude, we were already leaders. We had attitude because we stood out as people that were leaders in our community. We were good at something. We were leaders in that direction. And so we had attitude, meaning like we were confident. Whereas in this movie, they had attitude because they were delinquent. And so that's altogether different. So then when it came time to be leaders, they didn't know how to be leaders. They had to learn in the process of learning each other. So that was the written difference of the movie. And so in that, the characters were completely different. So you can't really compare our characters to the characters in the new movie because they weren't us. They were a different version of what we were.
Aspects of your character.
Aspects.
Like Looney was very adventurous and outgoing.
Right.
Jason was like more of like a jock.
Macho.
Yeah, macho kind of guy. And yeah, so they have elements, but you're right. It's like almost like Breakfast Club meets Power Rangers.
I think it was very of this time period. I think they took elements of what we expect to see in movies today, as far as advancements in special effects and that sort of thing. I thought the character of Zordon was more dynamic in the film than he was on the TV show. Being able to move back and forth allowed him to be a little bit more expressive, so I thought that was great. I also like the fact that Zordon was kind of a jerk, because Billy's sacrifice in the movie helped his character to grow. So that was a nice arc for the character in the movie. I think they took a little bit too long to get to the point where the Rangers became the Rangers. But I understood, the reasons why the characters had to take that time, as Walter said, to learn to be a team, to be leaders. And Austin and I have talked about this before, the size of the Zords and the Megazord was a little bit too small for us. We really like the large aspect of the Megazord and stuff. So, but overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought they had a really good theme.
And the mastodon looked like a beetle.
Yeah.
6 legs, straight up orange, so I was like,
Mastodon and Triceratops.
yeah.
I love the setup for the story with Zordon and Rita in the very beginning.
Prequel of that.
That was something we never had. And I sat there and I went, Zordon was a Red Ranger. No wonder he's giving Jason such hell in this movie. I was like,
Yeah, it would have really helped.
I love that.
I want to see that like a prequel movie.
That would be awesome.
My wife wants me to come up and say that she grew up having a crush on Jason. I don't know if I should say that. It's too late now. But,
You're a real man.
manly in my Ghostbuster suit. I wanted to ask you, it's awesome that, it's 25 years later. I don't know if you knew that we would be talking about, not just talking about Power Rangers 25 years later, but it's still on the TV. And what's awesome about that is like everything that I grew up loving as a kid, that's the one talking over there, my 3 boys are still into. I know you guys have children. what was their experience with Power Rangers growing up? Were they into Power Rangers? Are they into Power Rangers? Are they sick of it because there's, mom and dad have done that, or whatnot?
It's funny because my son, when he was probably about 3.5, 4, maybe 2.5, 3, something like that, he was in his high chair watching TV, and Power Rangers came on in the afternoon, right? And so I was like, okay, they're showing Power Rangers on TV again. This is our episodes, and I was like, this is gonna be interesting. So I hadn't really shown him videotapes or anything, but it comes on TV, and we're sitting there watching it. And my son's like watching TV. All of a sudden, Zach comes up and he's like, and then he looks at me like this and he goes, like, I don't know how you did that, Dad, but that was a good one. That was a good one. I don't know how you did that. And he enjoyed the show. He watched it, and I think the episode stopped airing. My daughter didn't really get into it. But then my son was an actor, so he was on sets doing different shows and working as an actor. So I think after being an actor, he went, yeah, that's fake. That's not real. He's not really real. He's like, for him, it became, the reality was, oh, my God's an actor. So when people come up and they're like, oh my God, you're the Power Ranger, he's like, give me the camera, I'll take the picture. He's like, he's not really sweating it. They're like, they don't even really know that much about the Power Rangers, meaning David Yost came to my house recently, and he walked in, and I'm like, here's a test for my kids. I'm like, hey guys, this is my friend David Yost, you know who this is? They're like, give me a hint. He was one of the Power Rangers. Which one was he? They go, the Green Ranger? No, it's not. I tell you what, he was in the blue costume. He was the Blue Ranger. His name is what character? Jason? I was like, okay, my kids are gonna fail the Power Ranger test, but they still love the fact that people respond to me the way that they do, but they could care less. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, my kids did not. They're sick of me. They don't want to watch me on television at all. So they actually were traders and were into Ninja Turtles and Ninjago. So Ninjago, remember that one? But my daughter, they've kind of figured out that it's cool now because I do conventions and stuff like that. So when my daughter was in kindergarten, they were doing like a Halloween thing, and they were told, she was talking to some mums, and she's like, my mommy's the Pink Ranger. And these mums are like, oh, she's going to be the Pink Ranger for Halloween. And she was like, no, she really is the Pink Ranger. And they were like, oh, that's cool, honey. And then they realized that she was actually telling the truth, so that was kind of cool. They use it to their advantage at times, right?
My 8-year-old boy, well, so I was in the Middle East for 4 years, and I told my wife that I didn't want her to tell my kids about Power Rangers. Because if I was going to be a hero to my kids, I didn't want it to be because of a TV show. I wanted it to be because I was a father, because I was a man and I was with my family. So, I love her for a reason. So that was kind of my take on it. Well, my wife, who's a smart gal, she turned around and started showing the show, because it was gone, 4 years in the Middle East. And she would put on the show and she'd be like, look, that's your daddy, he's a Power Ranger. So, then I got to leave like once a year, maybe twice a year, and I'd see my wife and my little one, but he was too little to really know who I was. So I missed first steps, first words, I missed a lot of that stuff. And first time I held him, other than when he was born, he was almost 1, and he had no idea who I was. And I could tell he was afraid, like, who's this guy? And then at age 2, who's this guy? And so at about age 4, I finally came home for good. And my oldest had grown enough that he got it. And he came running up to me and he gave me this huge hug and he was like, Daddy Ranger, you're home. So that was a pretty cool moment for me. The other day, at age 8 now, he's upstairs with his buddy and they're on the iPad. And we've got it pretty locked down for obvious reasons, but he was on kids' YouTube and he's telling his best friend Carson, he's like, hey man, my dad's famous. And I'm listening to this and I was like, let's see where this goes. He goes, he's a Power Ranger. And Carson's like, yeah,
I know. He's like, check him out, he's got stuff on YouTube. Yeah, like, that's really famous once you make YouTube. So, anyway, it's, the kids are great. My 3-year-old girl, she just walks around kicking me after the show. I'm like, please take it upstairs. I don't need to hear me anymore.
Thank you.
Hello, I just first want to say thank y'all for being here. And I want to make a quick comment for my question. Last year, David Yost was here and I told him the same thing. Everyone talks about how Star Trek leads so many people to science and those pursuits. Well, I'm weird. Power Rangers is what led me there. When I was in school, around the time when I first started watching, I was harassed, bullied, beat up in school because I liked science, I wanted to do stuff for the community, and things like that. And I was like, oh, you're just some weird nerd, and beat me up constantly. So I started trying to hide it, that I liked this stuff, and started acting like, I don't even want to remember what I tried to act like, but I saw you all. You all had, I mean, Billy, obviously the main interest in science, but you all would help him, and y'all were doing other science-related things and helping the community, and it really inspired me, and it led me to who I am today, because today I'm a scientist.
That's amazing, and we need you in the world, absolutely.
You showed those bullies. People are threatened by things that they don't understand, or so it's usually coming from an insecurity on their side more than anything. So good for you.
I did get a crack out of David Yost's response. He says, well, what do you do? Oh, I'm a virologist. He's like, do remember I'm not actually Billy. I have no idea what that is. I was like, oh, I do research and work with viruses. He's like, oh. And he looks over at Aisha and is like, well, we learned a new word today. But I'm sorry, but my main actual question is Mr. Schreier and Mr. Thank you. They ended up accidentally becoming my favorite characters. At first I hated them because they were bullies. But then I saw as the show carried on, they started developing. And I actually later felt sorry for the other Rangers because the ones that got the most development were Bulk and Skull. They had a full arc to where they became the heroes at the end and did the I Am Spartacus and Power Rangers in Space. My main question is, I've always argued and even sent letters and stuff begging them to make them into Rangers. Do you think that the two of them deserve to be full official Rangers in the series?
Well, personally, I think Polly and Jason are the heart of what the Power Rangers show is about. Because, as you said, they have this full arc. They start off as these dumb as a rock bullies, but then end up becoming heroes. And I think that's what the lesson of the show is all about, is, you know, overcoming your foibles, overcoming your flaws, and doing the right thing. And Paulie is actually a Power Ranger now, because if you've watched Hyperforce, he is the Yellow Power Ranger. And he's actually part of the Power Rangers Legacy video game, and I think that's fantastic. It made me so happy to see that Paulie was a Power Ranger, and I thought that was fantastic.
Thank you.
You remember me? I'm so honored you remember my name. Like I met y'all earlier, it was great meeting you. My quick question is, well, for both Zach and Jason, one of my favorite moments with Jason is when he makes a comeback in Zeo as the Gold Ranger. And my only thing is, like, did they not approach you and ask you if you wanted to come back as a Ranger? Or did they just ask him?
They've proposed to me a few times about coming back. The problem for me has been, once I left the show, because the show is a non-union show. Non-union meaning it's not Screen Actors Guild. Most of the big shows that you watch or movies are Screen Actors Guild. And so after I left the show, and part of the reason I left the show is because it wasn't Screen Actors Guild. We were about to do a film, and they gave us a contract for 3 films and another 40 episodes, but it was all going to be non-union, which wasn't fair to us as actors. And so in negotiating for it to get better, we ended up leaving. So as soon as I left, I joined the union, and I've been a union actor for like the last 23 years or so. And so now, when they invite me back to a non-union show, in order for me to go, I would have to disavow myself from my union. That's protected me over the years and given me health insurance and so forth and so on. I couldn't just do that without it being worthwhile. So they would have to take care of me as if I were in the Screen Actors Guild. And they'd have to provide a way for me to get back into it if I left it. And that's not happened. So if they did, I would love to go back. I mean, I still got it. And so if there was opportunity, I would love to go back. I just don't know if they will make that happen. But maybe Hasbro will do it because they've changed companies now. So we'll see.
Yeah, I heard that too. That kind of answered my other question, like why did you guys leave? Because I heard because you guys had contract disputes, and I just recently found out it's because you guys wanted to explore other acting jobs and everything. So
it was we didn't. Well, I explored acting jobs, other acting jobs because I needed to. I was no longer on that show, but I never had an intention of leaving. I just wanted to make things better. We just wanted to make things better. Yeah, we wanted we want things to be fair, and it continues to be not fair. It's still non-union. It's still 25 years later, which is interesting because I think the original film would have had a bigger impact if it had been all of the original Rangers from the beginning, because it was something we have built up to, and I'm disappointed it wasn't that way.
Me too.
How many of you guys have seen situations in the news, the media, the internet, whatever, where someone is being wronged, mistreated by somebody with money and power, and you want them to stand up for themselves? That's what we did in the 90s. And I wouldn't change it for a second.
Thank you. And also one more question for Jason. Again, how you made a comeback in Zeo as the Gold Ranger. I kind of knew that Tommy would eventually become the Red Ranger, and seeing that, it was kind of weird to see him as the Red Ranger and you as the Special Ranger with the gold shield when it's usually vice versa. Was that kind of weird for you too?
Payback, sir.
Hey, big guy. What up, Red Ranger?
He lost his face. Oh no.
I love Ranger too.
Yes, you are.
Jason, is everything good?
He said, did you like being the gold Power Ranger?
I did. But you know what the biggest difference between the red and the gold was? The red was a very quiet leader. He was the rock for the team who always put his team first. The Gold Ranger was kind of a pimp.
That's funny.
That's fun.
Later, we'll talk about that later.
Thank you.
Good job, big guy.
Hey, so to make things a little more lighthearted, tell us some funny stuff that happened while on the show or even making the order that maybe we don't know about yet.
Oh, the order?
Yeah, some funny stuff that's happened either doing the order or the show.
One of the best moments for me making the order, the teaser trailer that we shot. If you watch it closely, there's a spinning shot of 16 Power Rangers in a room fighting each other. And to me, that is a World Guinness Book moment of something that has never been seen before on film, of different Rangers who are in combat with one another. And I thought that was uncostumed, unmorphed. And I thought that was a really, really unique moment. And we created that, and I thought that was awesome.
There was lots of funny moments. We were on set with each other for hours a day, so there was a lot of practical joking going on, and fights, and then making up. And
I did notice that there was a lot of photo taking because these guys really enjoyed the costumes they were in. They looked really badass, and there was a lot of like selfies and duck faces going on. So I think they really enjoyed that.
Yeah, we really loved our looks in that. That was fun. But yeah, it was fun to be on set and working, because I worked with Austin, but I'd never worked with Walter and Jason Font, like a lot of crossover from seasons, so we got to actually work together, which was really nice too.
Is there any one thing that stands out as particularly hilarious or maybe embarrassing for somebody who's not here?
You know, there's too many kids in the room.
Yeah, very, yeah.
I can tell you that I have an incredible appreciation, or learned to at 18, even greater appreciation. I mean, I love and respect my mother, but I never had reason to respect her dexterity or flexibility or that of the average lady until they put me into a Ranger suit and the zipper was back here. I can't tell you how many times I couldn't reach that zipper and almost became the Yellow Ranger. So I learned to pee real quick before I got into my suit.
Thank you.
I don't need that. Okay, I got two from the fandom. The first one is, what would Jason and Zach be doing if they were still Rangers?
What would Jason and Zach be doing if we're still Rangers? I think probably exploring other planets and helping to help people in other universes.
I think Jason would still be putting his team first, walking softly, carrying a big stick, and putting loudmouths in their place.
All right, the next one is how was it working with Koichi Sakamoto and the Alpha Stunts team?
Those guys are consummate pros. In fact, I don't know how many different levels of world-class martial artists we had on the show, but I could tell you, if you could check your ego, put it to the side, you could learn from any one of those guys. They're born with a special DNA. They've got a link in there that allows them to actually float in the air for incredible periods of time while spinning and kicking. It's insane. I don't have that link, but they're incredible. I love them.
Yeah, there's consummate professionals. Those guys are inspiring. I mean, I studied martial arts as a kid, so when I got my audition for Power Rangers, I was required to show some of my martial arts skills, and I was a little rusty because I had studied when I was like 9 or 13 or something like that, and hadn't studied since. And then, when it came to the audition, it was like, can you do some martial arts? So I pulled out an old kata that I remembered, so I did some of that. And then when we got on the set, I'm a dancer, so I had dexterity, and kicks came back to me, and like punches and so forth and so on. But working with those guys, I was able to develop better combinations. And as time went on, it was like they elevated me so much, because having the kick, you jump off the front leg, you kick with that leg, you land on the same leg. I was like, what? Show me that, right? And so he shows me the kick, and I'm like, man, let me see if I can do that. He's like, I've been working on this kick for like a couple of years. I finally got it, and I try it, and I almost get it. He's like, man, that was pretty good. Try it again. I did it, and I got it. He's like, I hate you. You got that quick. I mean, but they were, they can break stuff down for you, and it really helped us to learn. And then we had trampolines and mini tramps, and anytime I wasn't working on the set, if I had a break and I didn't have to worried about my wardrobe, and I was out with the stuntman jumping off of the mini ramp and hitting the pads and learning new tricks and learning to develop my skills. So thank gosh those guys are there because they improved us all.
And they had to fight, like, they did all of the crazy stunts with those helmets, and they were the monsters as well, which those monster suits were from Japan, and they smelled so bad because they had worn, like, sweat in, and, like, they were foul. And they would have to fight in those for hours, and they never complained. They were just, they really showed us how to be professional, I think. Thank you.
Speaking of the monsters, which was your favorite?
I liked Rita and Zed. They were always my favorite.
Goldar was always my favorite. My big gold monkey. That's what I missed from the 2017 movie. I wish Goldar had been more of a character rather than. Yeah.
Tell you what, I loved Goldar. I fought him like it was my job. but it was my job. But I think my favorite, like, I was stupefied. I walked into ADR and I'm looking at this monster morph on the screen because I hadn't seen it yet, and I would just, when you get to filming so fast, so quick, I would go to portions where I literally would just look at my lines, film my lines, and move on. Like, I would lose track of storylines because we were moving so quick. I swear they ran out of monster ideas, and they came in, and somebody, you know, like, all the writers are sitting at the table, and they're like, what's a new monster? You got any ideas? Everybody's out ideas. And then one writer came in late, and she set her pink purse down on the table, and they went, that's it! And it's my favorite one to hate, because it was literally like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man in pink with a zipper down his front, and he was the monster. I was like, God, that's horrible.
Yeah, I gotta give it up to the buddies. I mean, like, you know, the buddies, they were consistent. They were always there. You couldn't hurt them, but they come and go, and they had such personality. I mean, they didn't say anything, but they were like, we could tell who was the goofy one of the bunch, right? It was like, there was one going like this. That's the way he would fight. And you're like, I gotta fight this guy. You're just kicking boots. Sit down. You're like, on the ground. It was like, they were fun, though. The buddies were like comedy relief in the enemy, you know. Not completely scary, but, you know, consistent. And it's just amazing, you know. And the funnest part was to fight them because there's always like 7 of them. So it's like, all right, so when I'm doing it, I gotta kick and punch and duck and dive and avoid them, you know. If you get caught, you gotta like break loose and punch a Z and get some help, you know, like, but it was cool. I think the putties were a lot of fun.
Well, speaking of the putties, I was just thinking about that. With so many people on set, did you ever have problems hitting one another while doing these moves? Are you guys very coordinated? Did anyone ever get hurt while doing those scenes?
Well, we were all very coordinated. However, there were times where, you know, there might have been a mistake or two. And thank God the stuntmen were resilient. I mean, there was one episode where we set up this gag where there's a putty laying on the ground, and I'm supposed to punch him in the stomach, and then it makes him come up, right? So then I punch him in his face, he goes down. I punch him in his stomach, he goes up. Punch him in his face, he goes down. Well, I punch him in his stomach, punch him in the face, I punch him in his stomach, and I really punched him in the face. And he was going to, and I was like, and so I'm in the middle of filming, and I hit him, and I know I made contact right in his nose. I'm like, bah, and he starts screaming, and I'm like, oh my God, and then I keep going, I'm like, you know, to the next buddy. I'm like, I don't know, and then they go cut, and I'll go back, and he's on the floor going, and I'm like, dude, are you okay? And he takes the mask off, and I'm like, his nose is busted open. I'm like, oh. I felt so horrible, but it looked great on camera. They were like, that was perfect. That was awesome. And and he as well was kind of like, did it look good? Did it look good? So, you know, we're all there to get it.
Thank you.
Kids are going, that looks so real.
Can we get a group more for the fandom?
I think we can, yeah.
So I just learned that I've been morphing wrong. I forgot it's the right hand. Austin reminded me.
Austin, he printed out. Let's see.
You want to take the video for you?
No, I think I'm gonna do this like I'm morphing with my phone.
AT&T morph.
Don't give them ideas.
Wait for it.
Hold please. Your call is important to us. Next available, Mr. Jones will be right with you. No pressure.
Stop it. I gotta hold back. Here we go.
Jason, Kat, Zach, this is Zordon. Lord Zed is attacking Angel Grove. Teleport to the command center immediately.
Right away, Zordon. It's morphin' time! Tyrannosaurus! Mask it up!
Pink Ranger power. Oops, I did it wrong again.
All right, guys.